Today's task is to sand down this staircase. We're going to be using Festool vacuum, Mirka, and Festool sanders. The first step is to sand the nosing. And of course, hardwood is right next to the nosing. So we'll be using a linear sander, which Festool doesn't make anymore. So everybody should call Festool to bring this tool back. It's an essential tool, and if I didn't have it, I would have very bad days without it. The beauty of this sander is that it moves only back and forth without any side motion. So you can do a very straight fine line right next to the hardwood. Usually sanding right next to the hardwood would mean we have to tape off the floor and be very careful with it. But with this machine, you can sand right next to it without damaging the hardwood. Check this out. Next, we're switching to RO90. The sander has multiple heads, so you can switch whatever suits your purpose best. In this case, I'm going to be using this small, round, forced mode. And I'm going to switch to 100 grit. And continue sanding the nosing. So the RO90 can be used to get into the corners, but it doesn't really do a good job getting to the edge. For those edges, we use something else Festool discontinued, called the RAS 115. It's this machine, which is the only machine that has an elliptical port. And of course this had a cord. I cut it off and put in a quick connect. It's a custom Festool machine. And also for some reason, Festool decided not to make them anymore. I wonder why. Maybe because it makes sanding so much easier. We start in low speed, and this handle lets you adjust the dust collector. Switching over to Mirka now. There is really no good reason to do so, but since I got the machines, I might as well use them sometimes. For my preference is for Festool sanders. Their 6-inch sander has a edge guard, whereas Mirka does not. So it's always dangerous to use this because you have to watch what you're doing. Whereas with the Festool, you can just push it against the edge and you'll get great results anyway. And Mirka, of course, has a different cord. If you want, you can still use Festool's hose. It fits and does the same job as Mirka's, but Mirka's hose is much lighter and fits the machine a little better. And it's much more nimble. Whereas Festool's hose is doesn't give you as much flexibility and lightness. Of course, Mirka has this interesting double switch. First you have to turn the machine on, select the speed, and then you can power it up. I've had this machine for about a year now, and I can't still find a good place for my fingers. Nothing fits. I don't know how to hold it. Nothing works. So the best is, what I found is like this, which is kind of weird because you brush against the material, fingers don't fit here, and you still have to hold this button. And yes, you always have to hold this thing, even though it's sometimes best to hold the machine like this. You still have to figure out a way to keep holding this paddle down. What I do is I turn off the machine, I take some tape, and I tape down this paddle. It's not a good looking solution, but it's a solution. Or maybe I'll just hot glue it. And then you can just turn on. It does do a much better job at collecting dust because it has lots more surface area where the vacuum has a chance to pull the dust in. I'm using exclusively Mirka equipment to sand down a staircase. And there are some good points to the sander. One of them being, there is no exhaust from this sander, where Festool sanders all have exhaust coming out, and they blow dust in your face, they blow dust everywhere, whereas this sander channels all of its hot air through these ports into the exhaust, into the vacuum. And it's a very light sander, and that's it. This is where the good news stops. The rest is pretty annoying. The flap, you have to glue it down, because you can't use the sander at the odd angles without holding this with your thumb all the time. And of course it will slip and it'll stop. If you press too hard, it will throw a red light and overload and stop as well. You select the speeds here, which is annoying because you can always press it and change the speed accidentally. And of course, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps I've done would have taken me maybe 1/4 of the time if I use the RO150, which has the forced mode. This sander is nice, and if you don't have anything, this is a very good sander to have, but I would skip it in a heartbeat and get the RO150. So here's Mirka's version of the RTS 400, the rectangle sander. And of course, one thing I like about this sander is, once again, the dust doesn't fly in your face, and second, it's much shorter than the Festool, so it gets into the places where Festool just can't. And the sanding pad also comes out further than the Festool's version. So once again, you're able to get to places where it's impossible to get to with the Festool's version of the sander. This one I actually like. The only thing that would improve it is an edge guard, but then again, I never use it anyway. So, moot point. But yeah, this is one of the better sanders. There's also the Delta, which is just stupid, because you can always use the RO190 with the Delta attachment. I don't know, never found a good use for this sander anytime. But this thing, I kinda like. And of course, I already pre-taped it. Because of the angle of this pad, it's able to get right to the edge without causing much damage to the stringer. Button is super annoying, but the fact that it doesn't pick up dust and doesn't make it fly around is a big bonus. As you can see, there's nothing here, the fine dust. But this stuff that would have usually been left by the Festool and blown away remains in place. Because the sander doesn't have any exhaust coming out, this dust will not get blown all over the job site. So, there is a difficulty, of course, sanding behind the spindles. So you just pass your sander around and do your best. So this sander is something like what you would get in between the RO150's forced rotation and the oscillation mode only. This is kind of in between. It rotates, but not as much as the Rotex, and it vibrates, but more than the Rotex in just vibration mode. So it's an in-between tool, and if you forgot your RO150 like I did today, then you could use this. It'll take you twice as long to sand the stairs or whatever you're sanding, but you'll get results. As you can see, the stairs are done and no complaints. Oh, one of the major selling points of this brand is the lock-up vibration that Festool has, supposedly. In my experience, these tools produce way more vibration than Festool because they're lighter and there is no weight to capture the vibration. It's just you against the motor. So I think I've been duped. Oh, as for final words, don't forget your Rotex, and if you do forget it, have some Mirka on hand.